Welcome back. We are having our second conversation for the morning, and as we mentioned, we will be continuing the conversation on the municipal elections set to take place on March 6th. This time around, though, we have some familiar face with us on the couch. And as we've been mentioning, we'll be talking to our correspondents that you will be seeing on March 6th. They will be placed all over the country in the different municipalities. So just to give you a brief introduction of who we have here with us, we have no stranger to us, Paul Lopez. He will be the Belmopan correspondent, bringing you the sights and sounds and what's taking place in Belmopan.
Good morning.
And to his right is Marion Ali, and she is the San Pedro correspondent, also bringing you the sights and sounds. Everything elections, Marion will be bringing from San Pedro. We also have with us via Zoom Dr. Gwen Nunez Gonzalez. She is the Dangriga correspondent. And we'll also be having with us via Zoom Jose Sanchez, and he is our Cayo correspondent. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You're here bright and early. Paul, you've been here earlier, but also thank you so much for stopping by.
Let me jump in quickly. You forgot to introduce the Belize City correspondent.
Oh, I forgot. Right, Isani.
He's a co-host this morning.
That was on purpose, but also not on purpose. Yes, of course, Isani hosting with me this morning. He will also be switching hats and taking on the role of correspondent for Belize City, bringing the sights and sounds of relatively one of the biggest municipality.
The
biggest. You'll be quite busy on that day. I think you
is the head.
You need an
and
assistant.
hottest too.
Yeah, but it's gonna be your assistant. I believe on that day will be Terry Gordon as well. So it's gonna be quite an interesting day. But yes, I forgot you, not on purpose, really. But yes, we do have with us some of our most experienced media professionals here with us, and they will be correspondents on Election Day, March 6th. Guys, again, I want to say a very special welcome to the Oye set. Paul, for you, you know you're usually a host, but this morning you'll be speaking to us about your role as a media professional come March 6th, Election Day. Before we even get into what we will be expecting on March 6th, Isani alluded to it this morning. He spoke about the coverage that we've been providing both on the morning show but also on the news scene, where we've been meeting the candidates for the elections set to take place, but we've also been speaking with the people on the ground and hearing their concerns of what they believe they need in their municipality, and also giving credit where credit is due, talking about some of the achievements and things that they found to be done and of course beneficial to the community. I wanna get each one of your takes on the coverage that you've provided on the news scene. We can begin with you, Paul, since you provided coverage in Belmopan. You spoke to the mayoral candidates, also councillor candidates, and also you covered some of the concerns the people have in Belmopan. Let's take it over to you.
Meet the Candidates series in our weekly newscast has done great for us as reporters, because it has given us an opportunity to look deeper into the issues that are affecting these communities and some of the goals that the ruling parties may have hit and some that they may have missed, as well as some of the concerns that the opposition, in this case the majority being the United Democratic Party, that they are raising, and some of their vision and some of their plans. I did coverage in Belmopan. I also did coverage in Orange Walk.
Right.
And I did some coverage in Belize City. That will be aired throughout tonight.
And tomorrow.
Tomorrow night. But as I said, it provided us with greater insights. And I love that fact. I think we don't often get to hear enough from residents,
stands out in the upcoming
and we often don't get to hear enough from about the concerns ahead of the elections. We usually focus on these type of things on election day, but I think an informed public goes to the polls and makes decision based on the information that they would have received. And a lot of these concerns that are raised throughout these municipalities, even if it's by a small group of individuals, a lot of other residents could relate and it's like them just echoing a lot of times what residents are saying across the board.
So then, what were the similarities that you would say as it relates to concerns? Because you mentioned that you did coverage in 3 different municipalities, Belmopan, Orange Walk, Belize City. Those were the 3, right?
I'll tell you, this may not come as a surprise, and it may not have been covered any at all, but one of the similarities I found is that for the most part, people did not want to raise their concerns publicly. People were trying to...
For fear of victimization.
For fear of victimization. People wanted to stay away from the camera or the light. They actually preferred sharing their concerns
off camera,
off record. So I approached a lot of people, and this was my experience. I'm not sure how different Marion's experience was. Off camera, people had lengthy conversations with me, and I had to stop some at some point and be like, all right, I need something on record, so thanks for sharing your concerns, but I have to find somebody that was willing to be interviewed.
I think when I look at the landscape as it stands, I think I have a significant job on Wednesday. You do, Paul, and Jose. I'm saying that if I'm looking at the municipalities here, Belize City is a hotly contested one, so is Belmopan, and so is San Ignacio Santa Elena, right? And I'm looking at the fact that, and this takes nothing away from the other municipalities, it's simply to say that when you look at the nature of politics and the dominance of parties in these respective municipalities, we have our work cut out for us, right? If I look at, for instance, San Ignacio Santa Elena, where as it stands, you had a recently dissolved mixed council, right? And the former mayor and his former councillor are going head to head on elections day.
Right.
And you look at the fact that over the course of the weekend, the UDP were up in arms because they're vandalizing all their signs and what have you in that municipality. So Jose will have a lot on his plate come Wednesday, right? If you look at Belmopan, for instance, where you have Jacqueline Burns, but she's backed by John Saldivar, who some would argue is a polarizing figure in politics in that constituency. You look at Oscar Mira and his slate, you also have your work cut out for you, right? And I'm almost certain that Marion does as well in San Pedro, where you have perhaps a vast majority of people saying they're ready for a certain change, and you have, on the other hand, a vast majority saying we want to keep the status quo as it is.
Yeah.
What I want to do at this point is get Marion in on the conversation in terms of having covered San Pedro before for general elections and perhaps in a previous instance, the municipal elections as well.
Thanks, Isani. And good morning, everybody. If I could, before I answer your question, just follow up on what Paul was saying, because I did do pre-election coverage in San Ignacio, Santa Elena, and for the most part, I didn't find people were camera shy or any of that, or felt any sort of threat via victimization or any of that. They spoke to me, and interestingly, the 3 municipalities that I covered, which was Belize City on Saturday, San Ignacio, Santa Elena, and Dangriga before that, the 3 commonalities, the 3 things they had in common was that even though there has been a lot of infrastructural development in their municipalities, there is still a big need, there's still a huge need for more infrastructural work.
Right.
Drainage came up, more streets or resurfacing of streets or building of more streets as the areas expand. So that
Those
was
were
what
the
I found, on the ground.
Similar, yes.
To turn to your question, Isani, in terms of San Pedro, prior to Mayor or former Mayor Nunez, Wally Nunez's first term that he has served the last 3 years, prior to that, it had been an 18-year reign by the UDP. And so the switch was made only 3 years ago. Whether or not the people will want another switch so quickly, we will find out on Wednesday. Their needs as far as they're concerned, because I was visiting the island before then, and then my last visit was when the council introduced it was a pre-election launch of or a report on what their finances were.
look like, yes.
And so what they were reporting was that what they found in office when they took office in 3 years ago, and the accomplishments that they've been able to make since then. So in terms of what the residents were asking for, same thing. Infrastructure, they just wanted their streets to be paved, you know, because most of San Pedro is sandy because of the rain there, so they wanted.
And just to add to that, I think what is unique about San Pedro that is obviously different from the other municipalities is their issue with traffic. And of course, these over surplus of golf carts and vehicles, they have different concerns. While there are some similarities, there are some key things that they're looking for that's different. But I want to take the conversation over to Dr. Gwen Gonzalez, Nunez Gonzalez. She, as we mentioned, is our Dangriga correspondent, and she is joining us via Zoom. Dr. Gwen, can you talk to us about what you heard and saw in Dangriga?
Good morning.
Good
morning.
Yes, for the municipal nomination day. Sorry about that.
No problem.
For nomination day, I was able to see respect, a lot of respect. I must point that out because over the years, I have seen where both sides of the campaign team go at each other. But for nomination day, the People's United Party, they did their thing in the morning, the afternoon, UDP, and there were other people from both sides standing on the side watching the other party parade, and no kind of disrespect, no kind of anything, but it was just celebrating. Now, the feedback after, in the afternoon, some people were saying, well, UDP had more people supporting them, taking them to nomination, and they had very long motorcade than the morning, and then some said, then in terms of the sentiment, people are saying it's going to be a mix, a mixed council, because on both sides you have good members who have tried to do their part in the community. Some people said they think that it will be down the line, blues, depends on who you speak to. Some said, well, down the line, red. But a lot of people I'm talking to who have spoken to me have said that they believe it will be a mixed council.
Right.
In terms of the mayor, they were not able to decipher. They said, well, we are sick.
So now,
that's one thing I've learned covering elections on that it is won on that day. I have seen over the years where you go. I like to travel, visit the rally before, right? The meeting before, and I remember a year, man, we say UP got this because that place was ram jam. But then I looked at at those who were at that gathering, and I told my friend, I said, no. I said, you know what? Most of those are youngsters. They can't vote it. Most of those are our students.
The shirt doesn't vote.
Yes, the shirt no votes, right? And I said, so I don't think so. So I've learned to observe who is there and the age range. I said, maybe down the road, if they stick to their party, then what now? And so said UDP.
That's quite an interesting point. Isani, you can go ahead.
I have a question for you, Gwen. as a resident of Dangriga. So, in much the same way we here in Belize City and perhaps others in the various municipalities are seeing all of this infrastructure work taking place at the 11th hour, right? And perhaps people are feeling, okay, well, the government or the party in power is doing all of this to ensure a vote in its favor on March 6th. What do you feel is the sentiment of residents of Dangriga seeing all the work that's taking place there?
Okay. In terms of the roadworks, the mayor, you have to give him what is due. From the time he got into office, he tackled the streets. But we have so many streets, right? The main ones, he was able to garner support to fix and pave and so. Then the back streets, those are the ones that people have been complaining about.
Yeah.
But they have been trying, like we said, right before election, to make sure they bulldoze and dump. But no, for Dangriga, in all fairness, I cannot say, oh, they're doing that just because that towards election, because they've been doing it. You understand? So just that there are many streets. And some people are also complaining about street signs.
Yeah.
The naming names of the streets. But we are the problem.
Yeah.
Because there's some signs that were there. We are the ones who destroyed the street names. But that's another concern that people are talking about. Another concern is that they see more of the mayor than the councillors themselves on the ground and reaching out. They see the councillors who are in, but they didn't see many of them.
I wanna get Mr. Sanchez into the conversation because, as Isani mentioned, one of the municipalities that we have a close eye on is San Ignacio and Santa Elena, particularly because of that mixed slate dynamic there. Of course, you would know that we did have both mayoral candidates with us here on set last month, speaking about the challenges and the successes that took place in their term. So we want to get some feedback from you, Jose, and talking about what you heard and what you saw when you were capturing the sights and sounds there.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I would like to say that I think that having a mixed council has actually been beneficial for San Ignacio and Santa Elena, specifically because, as you were mentioning, how you see all of these works going about streets. But in that municipality, every day is like that for them simply because the PUP and UDP are trying to prove that they are the specific party that they need that want to win. And of course, coming closer to election, you see each party doing their own thing. For example, the boardwalk, I'm sure that was recently announced. The UDP mayor was not a part of that. He was not included in that. So that was something to prop up the PUP candidate. And specifically, he is a part of that council now. So that kind of shows you the division that has been going. That's probably the most hottest and contested municipality, in my opinion. And the last time I was there for municipal elections, the counting that went throughout the night, specifically because, like Mr. Trap won, and that's not something, of course, he wanted. So I was there throughout that whole night, bringing it in when he won. And there were a lot of hurt feelings there. And I think they tried to, they were still trying to find ways to get rid of him. But it has worked to an extent. But of course, as Isani pointed out, that coming up to the end, you see people defacing murals, for example, and putting the mayor's name on it. And I don't think he's going to deface a mural and then put his own name on it.
Right.
But it just goes to show you the level of aggression that there is.
Yeah.
During the last election, for example, there was like a huge argument. I'll tell you, the most excitement is going to be in Santa Elena, in front of that primary school. That's where all the action is. Arguments are expected, but the biggest argument they had last year was because somebody measured the space from the gate at the entrance.
Yeah.
And one of the parties had 6 inches closer
More.
to the gate, and that created a whole big debate and argument. But
gracious,
that's
for
the
6
everybody
inches.
trying to prove their value and make their money.
Yeah.
In Benke, for example, it's not as tense, but people are out there because they know it's a day that they can earn. I remember I made the mistake that time in Benke when I was looking for an interview, and I said, "Oh, but look for the people in that house up the street around the corner." Not knowing I'm walking with the microphone, not knowing I'm walking into the money house, and everybody got collect after their vote, and everybody looked frightened when they sing, right? But it is an exciting day to see that go down. But definitely. So what becomes then of this UP mayoral candidate if he doesn't win, for example? Will they give him a seat on the council simply because maybe he garners more votes? These are things to look at to see how they're going to divide it. But I think most people are projecting to see another mixed council for San Ignacio, Santa Elena, and it's a bit, to me, I know people have their favorites for Benke area, but we're in a post-COVID world now, and one of the reasons why the election results were the way they were the last time around is that many people couldn't cross the border. Remember, we have a lot of resident aliens.
That's a very interesting point. Go ahead.
And they couldn't come across the vote.
Yeah.
And that seriously affected the outcome during COVID. So expect that a lot of buses are going to be coming across from Melchor for these resident aliens as well. So definitely we're going to see the dynamics is going to be interesting because, and the parties will watch it because that will also affect them for our general elections as well. But the team and I think Mr. Tabra and I will be having a great time running back and forth between San Ignacio, Santa Elena, and Benke. So that whole stretch of road will be our where we'll be. And we look forward to bringing it to you once again as before. That has been the playground for the past few elections for me.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess I could speak on Belize City briefly.
Yeah, you can talk to us.
Well, Paul and I, and Marion, of course, because the three of us have tackled a political party over the course of the past week or so in respect of our Meet the Candidates series, right? But as I mentioned earlier, I've been working with the People's Democratic Movement in terms of looking at what they're doing on the ground. And so yesterday, we were in the Penn Road, Crawl Road area, Lake Independence, right? And what is interesting is the fact that I look at the composition of certain slates as what I would describe as like a motley crew, right? You have people from different backgrounds, people with different objectives or what have you, but you all have them on one team. And so it's dynamic in that regard, right? So when I look at PDM yesterday, they're all grassroots people, but their individual stories are interesting as to what brought them to electoral politics, right? The youngest person is 21 years old on their slate. It may not be the youngest person ever in electoral politics at that level, I'm not sure, but I'm simply saying for PDM, this one young lady stands out because in her mind, her mission at this point is to make a difference in her community as a young person. And you don't normally get that when you're looking at electoral politics in the round, right? You find that mostly middle-aged people are going on to being older folks are the ones who are offering themselves. And so I look at that and I look at how she's able to interact with other people around her in that particular space. And I'm thinking that perhaps it's a good thing for younger people to get in on governance. I'm looking at beyond just the party politics aspect of it, but to get involved in how your city or your town or your country is governed and being a part of that. I think when you look at our population and a vast majority of us are younger people, it goes to say that we need more younger people in office, right? That's just my observation. I'm not sure where you stand on that, Marion, in terms of...
I do want to ask a question, though, Isani, because I love that you mentioned that from your perspective, you welcome young blood. But a lot of times, it's looked upon as a weakness when a young person joins politics because they're, for instance, voters, they're looking for more seasoned individuals that know that know how this game work, right?
That's arguable, though.
It
is
is,
arguable,
but I've
yes.
heard that as well, where, you know, younger people were looked upon as like, what this young person could do for me, you know? So are you guys hearing different views?
I'm seeing across municipalities that these political parties are making an intentional effort to include at least one or two young candidates. And I would hope that it's not just for image, but that it's actually to have these individuals make an impact and to represent, truly represent the needs of the young persons within their communities. When you look at Belize City, you see young candidates. You look at Belmopan, you see young candidates. Those are the two municipalities the slates I'm familiar with. Oh, Orange Walk as well. You have a few, in fact, the People's United Party slate. A few of the candidates I've spoken with, most in fact, are young. And are youth advocates as well. So there is that dynamic now more than ever before that I'm seeing with young people.
But there's a
Interesting
reason.
point.
There's a reason for that, though. Go back to what I was saying earlier, right? If you look at the population as it stands, a majority of who we are younger people, right? And so
Sabrina and I.
I love that you mentioned that because
you need representation at that level.
I love that you mentioned that, Isani, because I mean, I come from a background prior to media of youth development, and that was a conversation that we constantly had. Young people, we're a majority of the population, we're 70% of the population, but we constantly had a struggle to have that be relevant enough to give us our space, give us our respect, to have a seat at the table, to have a voice. And that's why that question was posed. Are these young representatives just seat fillers, or are they intentionally placed there to bring voices, to have the young people's voices heard?
Well, to answer your question and then to go back on what you all have been saying, no, they're not just seat fillers, quote unquote. Patrick Faber, who is the area rep for my constituency, where I live in Collet, he was first elected when he was 24, and that's to central government. Cordell Hyde, he was elected when I think he was 26 or 28. We had way back in the 90s when Marissa Alamia, I think she was Kwanden, she ran for I think it's neighbor, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. But she was in her early 20s, maybe 21.
Right.
Then there was Adelma Broster, who ran for neighbor under Philip Golson, the late Philip Golson. And she was also, I think, in the very early 20s. So maybe now there's more a push to include younger folks into the fray. But I'd like to say that there's been an effort from, 20, 30 years ago to include more young people. And what I really like is that now we have the children parliamentarians and that whole
I love that you mentioned
effort.
that.
So it includes more of our younger folks.
Well, I mean, we don't have too much time left to really dive in on this conversation, but I just want to let our viewers know that the conversations that we're having right now, it's going to be very similar come March 6th on Wednesday. We will be having extensive discussions on what's taking place in the different municipalities. Just because we weren't able to get too much from our correspondents via Zoom, I'm going to give Dr. Gwen and Jose one more opportunity to just share what they can expect, what our viewers can expect from you guys come March 6th. We can begin with you, Jose.
Okay. Well, definitely, I think we forgot to mention that if there are any third-party candidates, we always strive to give them some airtime as well.
Right.
But definitely, we're trying to speak to the politicians, to the people on the ground who are there just to get a vibe of what it is that they are feeling for that day. We want to bring you the atmosphere so you can feel what it is that the people are feeling out there within San Ignacio, Santa Elena, and Benque. And definitely, we want to hear from throughout the night. We want to bring you the statistics, let you know. I'm not so excited about the box counts, but I know people love to know, what box are being counted, how many they are, So we'll try to be as close as we can to bring you that information, and of course, the best coverage that there will be for this 4 elections.
Dr. Gwen?
Okay, well, for that day, I really want to see, in terms of feedback about women, because I
Yeah.
thought we were going to talk about women
That's
on the
true.
slate.
We missed that.
So I know in terms of trying to bring the youth, there are a lot of youth on both ends. So young people here, and they're offering themselves. So people are looking at their involvement. There are one or two that they said, I don't know them, right? But that they say, well, I see them around, they're working, they're involved. So hence the reason why people are of the opinion that it will be a mixed council. But on the ground, on that day, we'll be visiting all the polling areas and trying to give clarity. Some people are still confused between Delil and Holy Ghost, because for us in this area, we used to go, all of us go to Holy Ghost. But now that from last election, that divided, but there's some people still don't understand, because they've been asking me. And so, but we'll be on the ground, sharing and finding out how people feel about, especially our female. There are 3 females running up, 2 on the United Democratic slate and 1 for the People's United Party. So we want, I really want to see how that pans out. So we'll have unbiased reports.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I've learned that as a reporter, I don't have a side. I work on all the sides, the 12, 15 million sides that will be available, and then so we'll be able to do that. So that's our plan for beautiful Dangriga coverage for Channel 5's municipal election 2024.
I just want to end on my end here by informing our viewers that we do have correspondents across the country for the municipal elections come Wednesday. All 9 municipalities, we will have persons on the ground. And of course, if you've been following what we've been doing since the end of January, early February, thereabout, we have been visiting all of these particular towns and cities and providing the kind of on-the-ground coverage that builds up to or leads up to March 6th, so that when you go to the polls, as voters, you would have an idea of who you're voting for and why you're voting, right? And I also want to take the opportunity to thank all of the correspondents who have signed on to our coverage for this year. So far, we've done an exceptional job, and I want for us to keep it that way so that on Wednesday, our viewers watch Channel 5 for the latest information.
Yes.
By way of a tad bit of useful information to our viewers, if you want to know beforehand what your polling station is or where it will be, you can actually go to the Elections and Boundaries website, very, very useful website, and you find the option for a voters list. And all you have to do is type in your first name, your last name, and your date of birth. And when you click search, right there, the information will come up as your voter information and your exact polling station.
Nice.
Now, that's useful because, like for Belmopan, for example, there'll be 3 polling stations. Customarily, it used to be 1, the Belmopan Comprehensive School, but now it's 3. In Belize City, there's 86 polling stations. 86. And so you don't want to find yourself going to 10 polling stations just to hear, oh, this is another one, this is another one. So go online at Elections and Boundaries website, and you could get that information. I've tried it, and it worked really well
when
for
you
me.
said 86, thanks for reminding me
I
how
know.
much
Yeah.
work Terry and I will have on Wednesday.
86.
But I want to add one final thing here, and I feel as if though I'm doing sort of an injustice by not bringing it up earlier. Our social media presence,
Yes.
right? So we have Hipólito Novello, who has been doing an exceptional job in terms of the surveys online, in terms of the interviews he's had with the various correspondents, the various candidates as well, and so on. So for persons who are on the go and may not necessarily be in front of their television sets come Wednesday, you can catch the latest information as well on our social media platforms.
That's
all right, so I just wanted to plug that in there as well.
Yes. Marion, you have any last plug?
Well, it's more of a funny one. I always get a kick out of, even though before you start your interviews with these politicians,
Yes.
these candidates, you tell them, you know, we don't tolerate any kind of campaigning on election day. And it always gives me a kick when I get a joke when, you know, at the end of their message or their interview, they will always go do the right thing or, I don't know, all line down the line or whatever. They do it in such a way that, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We always try to tell them, but they
As
still
long
find a
as
way
it gives you a kick and you don't give them a kick, right?
I do want to remind our viewers, though, that we have our final mayoral candidate sit down tomorrow, and that will be with the Belize City mayoral candidate. So it's going to be quite an interesting one for those persons who've been following the coverage that we've been providing both on the news and the morning show. We have the last municipality, which is Belize City. So stay tuned. But we got to take another quick break, and when we come back, the conversation switches to Women's Month. When we come back, we'll be talking about the start of Women's Month. Stay with us. We'll be right back.